I usually enjoy my Sunday morning drive over from Gainesville, always stopping to get a cup of coffee at McDonald's. And one of the things I like to do is read the church signs, because I pass a half a dozen of them, beginning with Free Chapel, which is around the corner from me. I like to read the signs about today's service, and particularly the titles given to sermons. I always check First Baptist in Gainesville because my friend Bill Coates is a great preacher and has some interesting topics. I want to stop and listen. Free Chapel and 12 Stone always are appealing to their large crowds. Catchy titles. Catchy titles. The interesting thing is, I don't know of a single Episcopal church that advertises anything other than the times of its services. Churches that put the titles for their sermons. Which got me to thinking about today's sermon. I could come up with a number of titles, but all of them would have to have a footnote. R-rated. Because if you really read those lessons that we just heard read, they are R-rated. Now you have to read between the lines a little bit, or read some of the commentaries, but they are R-rated. Beginning with our one from the Hebrew Scriptures, the story of David bringing the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. Saul, the first king of Israel, had done battle with the hill people, had almost lost, but David had saved him. David took over the army, fought the Philistines, defeated them, and captured the city of Jerusalem. It would become known as the City of David. Once it was secured, David's goal was to build a temple to house those tablets of stone on which were written the Ten Commandments. They were contained in a container of some description that rode on the back of a cart. And wherever the tribes of Israel went, that monument, those stones, went with them. They were the defining characteristics of the Hebrew people, those 10 commandments, those tablets of stone. So in this morning's lesson, David has defeated the enemy, captured the city of Jerusalem, is about to make it his home, his city of David, and is going to transport the tablets of stone, the Ark of the Covenant, from where it has been in hiding for 20 years into the city. It's on the back of a cart drawn by oxen. And David is leading the way. And that's where it gets interesting. To begin with, David gets nearly naked. He's wearing a very small loincloth. And he's dancing and singing as he leads the cart down the road into Jerusalem. On a hillside, just outside the city, there is a large house with a balcony. And on that balcony is gathered the ladies in waiting and David's wife, Michal. She is the daughter of Saul. It was a marriage of political alliance and convenience. And we are told that as she stands on that balcony with her ladies in waiting, David comes down the road leading the procession with the tablets of stone. Half naked, more than half naked, dancing, singing, playing the pipe. And the indication is, and it depends on the Hebrew language, And he was also flashing himself for the ladies in waiting. I told you this was R-rated. It gets better. It gets better. That night, his wife confronts him, accuses him of exposing himself and of acting less than king. And David's response, I'm going to lock you in a room for the rest of your life. Nobody will love you, you will have no children, and you will die all alone. And that's what he does. Good King David. R-rated. It gets better. It gets better. We get to the gospel this morning. And usually the gospel is very uplifting. And again, you have to read the whole story and you have to know the history and read the commentaries. This is Mark's second longest account in his entire gospel. The longest is obviously about Jesus. But the one we heard this morning is the next longest, about John the Baptist and Herod. Herod is one of three boys, sons of Herod the Great, who was in charge when Jesus was born, subservient to the Roman government, but still an awfully powerful person. His three boys, all married. When he died, his kingdom was divided up among them, and Herod Antipas got the area where Jesus was born, Galilee. Herod, too, had a wandering eye. We are told that he had an affair with his sister-in-law, ended up convincing her to divorce her husband and marry him. So John the Baptist had much to say about this, that it was in defiance of everything sacred about Hebrew law, and that they were all sinners. And Herodias pulled the plug on the whole thing. It was Herod's birthday. He threw an elaborate party, invited all of the good, wealthy folks. His niece, wife's daughter, his niece was to be the entertainer, an exotic dancer. She performed so well and he was so pleased. And the implication is he also had his eye on her for another tryst. He said, I'll give you anything you want. You did such a wonderful job. She confers with her mother. Her mother convinces her to ask for the head of John the Baptist, and that's what happens. And as that gospel ends, the guards are bringing in a platter with John's head on it to present to the daughter and through her to the mother. I couldn't help but wonder if somebody announced dessert is served. I told you, these are all R-rated things. I mean, it's fortunate the only children here are too young to be influenced by them. A sordid story. Why does Mark spend so much time telling this? The only thing he uses more space for is the story of Jesus. And not only that, look where it's put in Mark's gospel. It's inserted right after Jesus has sent the disciples out to the neighboring towns and villages to preach good news, to heal the sick. Why in that particular place? think, first of all, that what Mark is saying is being a disciple is risky business. Being a disciple in that kind of environment can get you killed. And it did. And the epitome of that is the story of Jesus and his crucifixion. There is no survivors in that case. Being a disciple means making choices. Often choices that are very costly. There are times when all folks have to make choices. Moral choices, even sometimes choices of life and death. Our society is made up of folks who make choices. And we are in the midst of all of that as we speak today. We profess a faith that says we are responsible for each other. We are responsible for each other. That we make everyday choices. And are they choices that are in the best interest of not only ourselves, but of those who are our brothers and sisters? Do we care for those who cannot adequately care for themselves? Do we feed the hungry? Do we provide medical care to those who cannot afford treatment? Do we speak the truth when it is much more convenient to be silent? Maybe the point of Mark's gospel, telling it as he has and in the way he has, spending so much time on this sordid tale, is to remind us just how thankful we ought to be as people who live in this time and this place. I think, secondly, that Mark tells this story and tells it in the place where he does, to remind us that we practice our faith within a larger community. And that the Christian faith in general and our church in particular cannot and should not be silent on issues of justice and poverty, civil disobedience, law and order. Those are all issues that affect every one of us and affect the very institution in which we sit, in which we pray. We choose sides. I don't know about you, but I am not only sick and tired of the ads that I have seen for the coming election, but for some of the antics that are embodied in that pursuit. There are some folks out there who will lie, who will sell themselves, and at the same time ask for our votes. It is our Christian duty to be thoughtful, prayerful, and make the best choices that we can make. Quite frankly, I'll be glad when it's over. Last of all, it seems to me that when we read our weekly scriptures, they remind us of not only who we are, but whose we are. And we are called to be true to what we believe. There are all sorts of ways of being true to what we believe. Thoughtful voting is certainly one. The choices we make about how we spend our money. what we value and what we don't value. Those are choices that we make. And in making those choices, we're making a statement. We're trying to live into our faith so that others see that and want to be a part of that. We all find ways to value and promote our values. And it's there for the world to see. Whether that's at election time or whether it's in just everyday living. I just finished reading a book which I commend to you. I'll say more about it later. The book is based on a photograph that appeared in 1992 in the New York Times Magazine. It's a photograph of a middle-aged man. Full beard, bushy eyebrows, long hair. He's dressed in a tuxedo. He is sitting on what would amount to something like a lawn chair. All around him is rubble. Rubble. Behind him is a nearly demolished building. It is what is left of a bakery. It is in the middle of Sarajevo. On May the 22nd of 1992, the city was surrounded by rebels. Fighting had gone on. They waited until the bread line had formed at the bakery. And then they shelled it. 22 people died in that bread line. A few days after that, the gentleman whose picture was in the Times appeared in that square. He appeared with his lawn chair, dressed in his tuxedo, with his cello. He had been the chief celloist in the Sarajevo Orchestra. At 4 p.m., he sat down in that chair and took his cello and played a haunting tune. He did that for 22 straight days, the same time every day. They fired rockets at him. They sent a sniper to kill him. But every day he was there playing that same piece over and over. That piece of music was the remains of a larger piece of music that had been found on the floor of the cathedral in Dresden amid the ruins from the Second World War. That's what he played. 22 straight days. He made a statement of what he believed, a statement about what is valuable in human life, a statement about what can be beautiful in the midst of absolute tragic ugliness. He played for those folks in that bread line. Remember him as we form our own bread line for that tiny little wafer and that sip of wine. comment.